All right, welcome to the first episode of Morgan County Stories. My name is Aaron.
And I'm Mecaila Farnsworth.
And Mecaila is here as our first ever interviewee, co-hosts, whatever you want to call it for this show. And instead of talking about her and her stuff for the first few minutes, we're going to, her choice, mind you, she did this, she asked for this, so we're going to do it. Her favorite Halloween costume and favorite meal. So we'll start with Halloween because as I said off air, I browsed through your Instagram and I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this madness? This is legit. She's almost like a Hollywood level, like costumer. So talk us through, number one, why, and number two, what have been your favorite Halloween costumes?
Okay, so starting off, I've always been obsessed with Halloween since I was a little kid. I would be planning my Halloween costumes like the day after Halloween. My mom's like, calm down, like we have a whole year. And I'm like, no, I already have thought about it based on whatever.
Right. I'm sketching it in my notebook. I'm working on eliminating the lists already.
Yeah, exactly. And so we had this deal where we would get like a store-bought costume one year that I got to pick, and then the next year it would be like a homemade costume that my mom would have to make, and we go back and forth. And so like every year when it was my turn to pick, I'm like, okay, I want the accessories, I want the wig, I want the makeup, I need the shoes. Like I'm going all out. My mom's like, it's gonna be cold. I'm like, I don't care.
And this was in Colorado.
Yes,
so
Colorado.
So for those of you who may not live in Colorado or don't know about Colorado Halloweens, there's a 85% chance it's either going to snow or it's going to be miserably cold. And so when she says that, you need to understand, like, kids will fight with their parents. Well, you need to put a coat on. No, I'm wearing my costume. I'll have hypothermia before I have to wear a coat on Halloween.
Literally, I would lose my toes before wearing a coat on Halloween. Like, I didn't care. And I would say my most epic Halloween costume was one time I wanted to be a Christmas tree. So
okay, hold on. Team timeout. A Christmas tree.
Yeah, on Halloween because actually Christmas is my favorite holiday. But I was like, I really just want to be a Christmas tree for Halloween because I've never seen anyone be a Christmas tree. And then my
first time for me too. Okay.
Second most epic Halloween costume, like the next year, I wanted to be a piece of pizza. I don't know why.
I'm sorry. I just actually lost my headphones on that cackle. So how did the Christmas tree work out? Was that good?
It was great. My grandma, she's a really talented seamstress, so she sewed me like a Christmas tree out of felt, and like we hung like literally like ornaments on it, and it was huge, and it was so funny. And I wore it to school. And everyone's like, okay, and I'm like, isn't it great?
How old were you at this point?
I think I was maybe like 4 or 5. I was very young because I have a picture in like our preschool class and I'm wearing a Christmas tree and everyone's wearing like totally normal like Spider-Man, and I'm like, yeah.
There's Mecaila in her
there's
Christmas
Mecaila,
tree.
literally. And my mom, she would always try to convince me out of it, like,
right.
Are you sure? Sure. And I'm like,
Mom's looking out for you. She's like, okay, Mecaila's going to go to school and she's going to get made fun of. My daughter's going to come in tears.
And
but
no, I didn't even care. I'm like, everyone thought it was awesome. They're probably making fun of me. And I'm like, everyone thought it was great.
Yeah. Your perception was, I'm amazing. Yeah. Leave me alone. I'm great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we Christmas tree. So did you actually get to be a slice of pizza for Halloween?
Yeah, and so then the next time that it was a homemade costume, I was like, I thought really hard about it, and this time I want to be a piece of pizza, pepperoni, specifically.
Oh, no.
So my grandma, she put it together. She figured out how to make it happen. And I was a piece of pizza. And I've been lots of things like a Lego, all kinds of things. A Game Boy one year.
What?
I made my mom make me like a Game Boy
like a
costume.
Cardboard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, so every year that it was the year for them to make the costume, like it wasn't simple. Like, you're going to make me a full costume.
That's
and
crazy.
then as I got older and I had a family, I was like, oh, I can't wait to do family costumes.
Yeah.
And then I also specifically made sure that every year our family vacation is to Disneyland, and we are wearing our family costumes to Disneyland.
So again, I did my research. I did as much research as I could because, again, in the time I had and like getting your name on the Googles and stuff like that. So I did find your Instagram. Obviously, it's out there. It's not private or whatever. My favorite costume, I think, is the where your son is the president of the United States, and you're like both you and your husband are like Secret Service agents.
Oh yeah.
And you got the whole thing going on. And I was like, okay, all right, look, that's great. I'm not even mad about that.
Yeah, and that one was even more epic because that was during the election year.
Oh.
So that was just even better because I was like, we have to do something that goes with the election year. Like, how funny would that be?
That's
and we
crazy.
walked that costume all around Fort Morgan, like down their little street. And everyone was stopping us like, can we take a picture? So I don't know how many people have a picture with my little baby president son.
And who knows, his future may indeed be president of the United States. And that would be, I think, the most hilarious thing and coolest thing ever, because he can be like, look, I was supposed to be president. I'm president now. Look at me, how cool I am. My mom's the best. She dressed me up as the president of the United States.
Yeah.
That's legit. All right. Well, okay. I see. My answer to that question is, I am not a big Halloween person, and I don't know. Well, actually, I know why, because there's people who cosplay for fun and love it, and you are one of those people. It's clearly, like, given the amount of evidence you just given, you love to dress up. You love to, but not even dress up. You love the artistry of it. Like, it speaks to you enjoying, like, no, man, I got to put on the cool stuff. I got to look good. Everything's got to be where it's got to be, and it is going to be professional. Have you ever been to like a Comic-Con or anything like that at all?
No, I haven't, surprisingly.
Okay, so next year when FanFest is in town, so it's like the July 4th weekend. In the cosplay, you take a notebook with you and just go for like the mornings or the afternoons and just like watch the cosplay. It's legitimately, it sounds a lot like what you did and how you did your Halloween costumes.
Yeah, I really want to do that, but I don't have any friends that like to do that kind of stuff. So I always have to go by myself to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Like, I would have to go by myself. I tried to take my son this year, but he didn't want to go. So we almost went this year, but I'm going next year. Let's
make a deal, because Create It Morgan can cover and document. If you want to go, let's go down there. I will document the heck out of your adventure, almost like a vlog series of just following you around. Like, we could do something like that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do it.
I'm down. I'm putting it on my list. Okay, so my favorite Halloween, because I just, that's all I remember was being Dracula, and I like the idea of Dracula. It's that kind of that, like, scary, imposing, like, I'm going to suck your blood. But there's also kind of the literary connection, because obviously it was a story in Bram Stoker's Dracula and stuff like that. So my Halloween story is not as fantastic as yours, which is okay, because it would be weird if we were both really like excited about it. I love that you have that passion where you just, it's a joy for you. Like, it's absolutely that way. So now let's move over to the stuff that's probably gonna make us hungry. Your favorite meal. If you need to think about it, I can start with mine. So my favorite meal is cornbread and chili. Now, here in Fort Morgan, it's chili and cinnamon rolls, which was weird for me, because I was born in Montana, I grew up in Oregon, and then I spent my middle school and high school and adult years here in Colorado, but in Denver. So I never really ventured out to Fort Morgan or whatever. And so when I moved here 5 years ago, it was like, what is this thing? And at first it was like, why would you put those two together? And then I finally was like, okay, I'll try it. Oh my gosh, it's legit. Like, you get the savory of the chili, and then the cinnamon roll is just like sweet, and it's just like, it's an amazing combination. However, it can't dethrone my favorite thing, which is the chili and cornbread. And the reason I think why chili and cornbread is my favorite is because it's a taste of home, and my mom used to make it, and we would put, and this, my wife, like, looked at me like I was a crazy person the first time I did it, but I put syrup on my cornbread. Now, she does butter, and that's it. You don't just do butter, you do honey or whatever, but no, why would you put syrup on that? I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I grew up on pancakes and waffles. Okay, like I need my syrup. It's like an addict needs its fix or whatever. So yeah, I love, and that, like, good chili. Now, not chili out of the can, but like homemade, like good chili where you actually did the meat and all that kind of stuff. I really, really love my chili and cornbread. But yeah, that's I will go home this week at some point and have chili and cornbread, because it's my jam. So now I've given you some time to think. What's your favorite meal of all time?
Let's see. So for me, it's also kind of like a taste from home, but the only person that can make my favorite meal is my grandma, and it's shepherd's pie. Oh. She's from Vermont, and so she would make it with like ground beef, corn, creamed corn, onion, and then just top it with mashed potato. So simple, but so good.
Yeah.
And I can't make it the way she makes it. My mom can't make it the way she makes it. Nobody can make it the way she makes it. So specifically, my favorite meal is her shepherd's pie.
Did she ever give you the recipe?
Yeah, I have the recipe, but if I do it the same, it does not taste the same. Really? I don't know. She does something different. I know it.
Well, I think there's probably something she's not like telling you that she puts in there. Oh, like I do with it, but here's the reality of that. Like with grandmas and moms, like they might leave it on the stove for a little longer, or they'll do something different they don't think to tell you.
Yeah.
And you're just like, why doesn't it taste like mom made it? Because mom made it a certain way and she doesn't,
Yeah, she can't even tell me how she made it. That's different. But yeah, so hers specifically.
Okay. That's awesome. And I think food is one of those great connectors that connects us to our family and our memories. And I like so my family is from Norway. So we're Norwegian pretty much all the way through, with some French and other things in there. But lefse is a thing we do. And it's like a potato flatbread. And everything else from Norway, I like lutefisk and all the other, whatever. Not so much. But lefse, you put like butter on it, and then you put sugar sprinkled over it, and you roll it up. That's home. My grandma used to make lefse when we would go up to Montana to visit, and it was every time I order somewhere and get somewhere and make some, it's just like I'm transported back to grandma's house, and just being able to be in that warmth, and that's a pretty cool thing. It's the power of food in our lives. All right, well, we are going to take a break for our intro music and all the stuff. When we come back, Mecaila Farnsworth is our guest, and I have a lot of questions to talk about. This is Morgan County Stories. We'll be back here in just a moment. I hit the button M for Mark. Every county road has a story. Each building is a tale waiting to be told. The acres and miles are a chapter in the history books of Morgan County. The people who have come before us, the folks sharing this space with us today, and those who will someday call this place home. Each is a story, and every story matters. Each episode of this program spotlights a story with the voices of those who have lived it. This is Morgan County Stories.
Now my wheels in motion and my windows open with the wind blowing in my hair. I'm driving down the highway, gonna do this my way. I can feel it in the air. Here I go.
All right, welcome back to Morgan County Stories. My name is Aaron.
Oh, Mecaila. Like,
It's
la, la, la.
Are you awake? It is 4:15 in the afternoon, and the day it's been a long day, but I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you joining us on our debut episode of Morgan County Voices. You are our Morgan County voice, and so I'm gonna speak about what I know about you, and then we're gonna dig into some stuff. So you are the 2-time reigning champion of Mrs. Morgan County. You won the title in 2022.
Yeah, last year. So I was 2023.
2023, and then you won the title again this year. So you're 2023, 2024 champion, and you will enter into the Mrs. Colorado championship in April of 24, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's coming up in not a couple of months. Yeah, a couple of months.
Yeah,
About
like
6 months or so.
Like 8 months. It
8
comes
months?
up so much faster than you would think.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
school. I had 3 months off. We had 3 months of summer vacation, and all of a sudden, school's next week, by the way. And I was like, oh, geez. Oh, gosh, here we go. So that's why you're here. So 6 months ago or so, I've stumbled upon you on Facebook. I think you shared a post in the Morgan County bulletin board, and I was like, who is this person? I was like, oh, she's Mrs. Morgan County. That's interesting. I'm going to follow this individual. And so I've been following your story, and every time I'm like, oh, okay, I'm more interested. Okay, I really want to know what this is all about. So when the opportunity came, I was like, oh, we're going to invite her on the show. So welcome aboard for the first ever episode. So my first question, I got a lot. You went to the Taylor Swift concert, didn't you?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, let's talk about Taylor Swift.
Yes, let's talk about her.
So
I love her.
how did you get? Because I think you had posted that you weren't going to go initially. So how did that all happen? How did you get? Because you were like in the nosebleeds.
Oh yeah. So originally I had tried to get tickets, but then the whole ticket master debacle happened, and I couldn't get tickets. Yeah. And so I kind of gave up on that dream, but I had just been checking and checking. And I don't know if you saw those ticket prices, they were so expensive, over $1,000. And so literally every single day I was just checking. Yeah. And then at one point I was like, I'm just going to go work at the concert. So I applied for a job and I interviewed and everything, got hired, but I decided maybe I would just buy a ticket. It's like, I kind of work a lot of jobs. Maybe I should just stop being so cheap and buy a ticket. But I just I had to stalk all of the resale sites. I ended up finding a ticket. I paid a lot of money to sit in the nosebleeds, and I did go by myself, but it was my first solo concert that I ever went to, and I had so much fun. I have loved Taylor Swift since I was in high school.
Okay.
So I don't know. I felt like I have connected with her. This is the first time in my life I ever had Taylor Swift money. Like,
I love how you qualify.
Ever gonna pay for it?
Right. Taylor Swift money. There's a difference between I got money. No. I got Taylor Swift money.
Yeah, I had Taylor Swift money, and I was like, we're gonna do it. So I went on my first solo concert adventure.
This is important to qualify because I suspect that you're significantly younger than I am. When did you graduate high school?
2010 technically, but I graduated about 6 months early.
Okay.
Because I was involved in a bunch of different programs in high school, so I had all my credits, and I decided to move on to community college a bit early.
Okay.
So I technically graduated in 2009, but I'm a 2010 graduate.
So you graduated 10 years after me.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad. So so 2010. And I actually have questions about your high school record I pulled up from the Googles later on in the show, but let's focus on the Taylor for now. Talk to me about that concert. Because again, I've heard many people describe it, but I want to hear like what your experience is. How did that feel?
Well, first of all, it was really overwhelming because I was going by myself, which is a little bit scary. Just I'm from Denver, so I never really was scared of Denver until I moved out of Denver.
Right.
And then you start hearing all the things that are happening in Denver, and I'm like, I don't really know it was that bad.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit scared, but when you just walk in there, it's just everyone is so happy. Everyone is just in such a good mood. I don't know. There's nothing like Swifties. Like, you meet a Swiftie, they're so sweet.
How many friendship bracelets did you get out of that deal?
Oh, I had so many, and I am still trading them. Like, every time I'm like out in the streets, like just yesterday, I was at View House and I saw some lady in a Taylor Swift Eras hoodie, and I'm like, here's some friendship bracelets because I just have them in my bag.
Oh my gosh!
But I got so many, and it was just so fun. It was like Halloween. Everyone was dressed up like in various versions of Taylor or people or little tidbits from her videos, and it was just so fun. I was just there jamming out, singing to every song. I was next to a couple little high schoolers, and they're like, "How old are you?" I'm like, "As old as Taylor." Let's not talk about it.
Let's just enjoy the concert.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, how old are you? I'm that old too.
Yeah. These tattoos, they're fine. I got them from the parents' permission. That's what happened. Yeah, that's how that works. So I've heard it compared to almost like a religious experience because it is everyone's in the stadium for the same reason. Everyone's gathered to celebrate Taylor Swift's. She's had an incredible career, and it's crazy to think about that because she's still young in the music world, and just the arc she's had and the eras that she's had. And I guess my next question is two questions. Do you have a favorite era for the Taylor Swift? And number two, what is your favorite song of hers that when it comes on, like, it just, man, you got it, it's yours?
Okay, so my favorite era is actually the folklore era.
Okay.
I love that whole entire album, and it's all stories. She's such a good storyteller. Every song in that, I don't know if you know about Taylor Swift, but every single song on the folklore album is a story that she wrote, and so some of them are connected, and there's all these different Easter eggs, which I couldn't even get to. We'd be talking forever. It'd be like turn into a Taylor Swift podcast.
We'll do a Taylor Swift podcast down the road. We will sit down and we will have an hour-long deep dive into the Taylor Swift era experience. Yeah,
so folklore is my favorite era, I would say, but I also really love Lover. That's my second favorite. Yeah. And then my favorite song is All Too Well.
All Too Well.
10-minute version.
That's fantastic. So I am probably not as much of a Swiftie as you are, because when the concert came up, I was like, there is no way I am even going to make it, and it's not going to happen. And even when the show got closer, I was like, there's no way I'm going to search for tickets for this thing. But what I love about Taylor Swift is the stories that are told in her songs. And I feel like it's going to be very interesting to see how her music journey continues as not to say that like older is bad, but there's, and you may be able to kind of connect with this. Your journey as you get older and you mature and your life changes, your perspective changes, and how you feel about things and what you have, like how your views and perspectives on religion and politics and all those things, they shift, because as you get older, you learn more, you experience more. And I'll be very curious to see, what does Taylor Swift look like in 5 years? What does she sound like? What is her next era? What is that going to be? Because she is one of the very few who's managed to have this incredible staying power over so much time. She started in country, and she's made that transition into pop, and she's been able to hold on to that pretty successfully. And it's mind-blowing. I get a kick out of it, and I think, to your point, it's really cool because it's not just like teenage high school girls who have a love of Taylor Swift. It's generational. So you started when you were in high school with Taylor Swift. You were those 16-year-old girls in that concert going, oh my God, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
But now you're able to continue to enjoy that as an adult, and as you grow and mature and have a family and all that stuff. Taylor Swift is still present. Her relevancy hasn't faded. And that, I think, is the true power of Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and I agree. And like I was telling my husband, actually, he's like, I don't know why you're so into this. I'm like, every song, it's like, in some way you can connect with it, even if it's not in the way that she intended for you to connect with it. Like, she could tell what she wrote the song about, but you can hear it with completely different ears. And you're like, oh, I'm relating this back to whatever situation that, you know, it takes you back to. So that is my favorite thing about her, is I feel like I've grown up with her and I can relate to almost every single song that she has written in some part of my life.
Well, I think that's the power of good music. And we could do a whole podcast about good and bad music these days, but I think the power, again, like you mentioned, the song wasn't intended, like she didn't intend, like it was intended a certain way. Like she had the things she was gonna say, but you were able to take something out of that. You're like, hey, this is a connection to my life. This is a connection to me. This is the value and what that I take from it, and I'm going to carry that with me. It wasn't just like a one-hit wonder. It was like, no, this song has meaning for me in this part of my life. And then a couple years later, oh my gosh, now it has this meaning, and now there's these other songs that have meaning in my life and speak to my situation and speak to my journey. And I think that's whenever we talk about like the greatest musicians of all time, you know, I think Taylor Swift obviously deserves to be at the top of that list because she spoke to you enough that you threw down Taylor Swift money to see her live, to go into downtown Denver, and probably, you know, either you stayed overnight or you drove back, and that was like, you took an incredible amount of effort to do that. And that's when you know that you're like, okay, this is somebody who's worth my time, because she's there. Anything else you want to say about Taylor Swift besides the fact that she's the most amazing person in the entire world?
No, I'm just praying that I get that access code tonight, so I don't have to pay so much for the next concert. Because
she's announced she's announced her next tour, or she's talking about the next tour.
Yeah, she's doing like a second leg of the Eras tour. Okay. And it's only a couple of cities next.
Okay. And you're probably are you working on that?
Oh yeah, I've got like my mom, everyone's texted for this access code. So if I don't get an access code, I'm calling Ticketmaster myself.
You're like, y'all,
I don't know what I have to do to become verified.
Right. Verify me, please. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Can you check my Spotify?
Can you check my Spotify?
I am in her top 10% of fans. Can you please check that?
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I don't want to pull my rank, but I have a title in town.
Literally. I'm like, and Spotify said I'm a top fan. Who are you?
Who are you, Ticketmaster? Your $1 billion industry? How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so we've kind of danced around it and talked about it, and let's kind of dive into it. So you are Mrs. Morgan County 2023-2024. I don't know anything about this, which is part of why you're here. What goes into that? How does that work? What pushed, got you interested in this? What was that journey like? Walk us through everything. Tell us all the things basically about this, because I'm so intrigued and so excited to hear about this, because I think it's the coolest thing since sliced cheese, but that's just me.
Yeah, I never knew anything about pageantry until I got into it.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago now, one of my friends, she had posted that she was Mrs. Greenwood Village. Oh. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, how do you do that? I don't even know what that means. And she's like, oh, one of my other friends is doing this. And you just have to want to change the community and like want to be a good person, and you can do it. And I'm like, okay, all right. So she sends me like, all the information. And I had a meeting with the state director, Emily Stark, and she's amazing. And so she really encouraged me. When I met with her, I'm like, I'm not like an incredible person. Right. Like, I do this and I do that. And I don't know, I just want to change my community for the better and Colorado for the better. And like, how do I get started? And she really pushed me to signing up for the pageant. So really anybody can do it. You just have to sign up, and you can represent, there's still local titles available. So you can represent a city that you live in or a city that you work in. And it's all about sisterhood and just coming together and making our voices strong together and promoting the things that are important to us. So some people, they support things like infertility or eating disorders, and some people just support like healthy hearts, stuff like that. For me, it's early education. A few years ago, my son was diagnosed with a speech delay. And so when that happened, we went through the early intervention program, which is a program for kids 0 to 3 years old. And they help provide free resources like speech therapy, occupational therapy, even like sleep therapy, which is amazing. And it's completely free. All the funding comes from the state of Colorado, Medicaid, and insurance trust accounts. So when we got started with that program, I was like, I really think people need to know about this. There are so many kids that have developmental disabilities now because of COVID and being in their house with only their parents and just not having the socialization and just the normal experiences that everybody grows up having. And so I noticed there was a significant delay, but what I also noticed is that the parents with the kids with the delay, they don't have access to these resources because they don't know that they exist. And people don't want to talk about that their kid
because it's embarrassing. There's that stigma like, oh my gosh, my child isn't smart or my child's dumb. And
and it's nothing even about that. It's like you can have the smartest kid in the world that just doesn't want to talk, or you can have the smartest kid in the world that doesn't like water. You know, and so I felt like there was just this huge, like you said, stigma of parents not wanting to talk about this or ask for help or saying like, oh, we're just waiting for them to, you know, go to their doctor's appointment and see what we do next. And so I just wanted to be a voice for people and talk about there are resources out there, or you can come and meet with other parents and, you know, get strategies and ideas and just be that person that people feel comfortable to just ask. And so that's really what I got started in the pageant, just because I wanted to meet more people. I wanted my voice to be louder. I wanted to make people feel comfortable to talk to me and to just ask for help. And now I have expanded and I've done a lot more with the pageant, but that's how I got started.
So your first reign, your first year as Mrs. Colorado, what was your biggest learn, or what was your biggest win, or what did you take away from that first year?
Yeah, so going into it, I don't know. I thought the world of myself, which you should. I went in there thinking like, I'm going to win this my first year. Like, I don't know anything about this, but like, I'm going to win. And that's all that was on my brain. Like, that was the only thing that I cared about was winning the title. And then as I got started, I started meeting the other girls and going to the other events. And then, like I said, I really realized that this was much bigger than just that one day and that one crown. And that really, what you do if you win that crown, what does it matter? If you're not doing anything leading up to it, you're not going to do anything after with it. What does it matter to have it? And so for me, I really just learned that it's not about winning a crown. It's more about growing in yourself and finding what's important to you and what you want to be better at every single day. And if the crown is what you want, eventually it'll come, or maybe it won't, and maybe better opportunities will come instead. And so the first year, like I said, I really wanted the crown, and now I've learned that I want to do the pageant. I don't really care if I win. And I don't know. I just want to continue to meet more people. I've met so many women in this just the pageantry, and women that are just so incredible and inspiring and fun to be around. And so now for me, it's just more about the sisterhood and just continuing the legacy and getting more women to be involved. Like I had mentioned, I had made a post and I'm like, please, more women come and get in on this. Like, it's not what you think it is.
Well, and I think to your point, that is the question is like people's perceptions, like specifically here at Lincoln, the perception of what Lincoln is changing, and we're really, really happy and thankful for that. But some of the times when somebody mentions, oh, where do you teach or where do you go to school? And they say, oh, we go to Lincoln High School. The automatic response sometimes is, oh, the bad kids' school. And there's that stigma of like, oh, well, that's where all the kids who, you know, whatever got kicked out or, you know, whatever got. And it's similarly kind of that stereotype stigma of beauty pageants have always kind of, for a lot of people, like, oh, well, it's just a beauty pageant. It's just, there's nothing real about it. It's all fake, plasticky, whatever. But I think, and this is going to sound super weird, so just go with me on it. Miss Congeniality is a movie that I love, and I don't know how you feel about it, but it kind of challenged that perspective of what a beauty pageant actually is. And I think to your point, it is about that sisterhood. It is about that community. It is about finding yourself and finding people around you that are focused on doing the right thing and are bettering themselves and improving themselves. Why do you think that perspective is changing? Or I guess two questions. Do you think that perspective is changing, and how do you think we can continue to challenge that outdated perspective on like those beauty pageant ideas.
Yeah, I think it's still changing. I think people still don't really understand what beauty pageants are, but
Yeah.
I think the more that social media grows is the more
Yeah.
that people are really going to start to understand that, because we live in a world of like the influencer.
Yeah.
And so I think that once, it's just natural.
Yeah.
Pageant queens are going to be influencers.
Yeah.
And once people start seeing that they are influencing for the better, they're not influencing you to buy some product, they're
Right.
influencing you to make a difference
Yeah.
in the ways that you can make a difference. And sometimes it's as little as, sending a letter to your senator saying, we need more handicap playgrounds
Yeah.
or something like that. And so I think that eventually, as social media grows and as people see what pageantry really is and the differences that it can make,
Mhm.
and these women start to go farther and farther and farther, that perception will naturally change.
Yeah.
I think people just don't understand. I think all they see is like, oh, okay, they're just on stage in a dress. They don't see
Right.
the interviews behind
Right.
behind the scenes where you're sitting down with the judge
Mhm.
and they're talking to you like this and finding out what's important to you
Right.
and why you should have that title
why do
and
you
what
wanna
you're
be here?
going to
Yeah.
do with it.
Right. Well, and the thing to your point is, it's not. It's about what's inside you.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and again, this is the stereotype. So forgive me for this a little bit, because the stereotype that most people have is like, oh, it's a swimsuit competition or the ball gown competition or whatever. But the reality of it is, and kind of what you've talked about earlier, is what am I doing for my community, and how can I be effective in my community, and how can I help parents find the resources for their kids who are experiencing these delays or whatever. I think that's the side of it that, to your point, is that the more that people see that and the more that people hear about that, they're going to go, oh, so this is both like the ability to show yourself to the judges and to really work hard on yourself, but it's also to work in your community and to bring a spotlight to your community, which I think that's, especially Morgan County, we need we need all the positive spotlights we can get, because sometimes people look at us and they kind of have this stereotype or preconceived notion of us, which is unfortunate, because it's a good place to live. And I moved here 5 years ago, and I'm not planning on leaving, because it's just that nice. I love it here.
Yeah, I moved here back in 2019 from
Okay.
Aurora, and I love it here too. Like, I can't see myself
Yeah.
really living anywhere else. And yeah, I agree. People, they just think like, oh, that Cowtown.
Yeah.
and
We
yeah.
have more than just a cow.
Yeah.
We got about 600,000. I don't know
Yeah,
how many
and we
have.
got corn too.
We got corn. Yeah, we got corn too. What do you want?
But yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna skip a couple of these, because I want to go. The deep cut I want to talk about real quick, which probably will not take long. But and this there's nobody else with your name that I know of that would have this record. But you went to Rangeview High School, and so I found a record, 2009, a personal record in the high jump and the long jump. So you were a track and field person back in the day.
Yes.
Was that just because you needed something? Like, were you interested in it, or was it just like, I gotta find something to do in my high school, or I want to do an activity, or what was?
I've always been somebody that does so many things. I've always been like an extracurricular activity kind of person.
Okay.
So in high school, I did track and field, volleyball. I was like the team manager for the football team, like the
Okay.
water girl.
Okay.
I was in charge of like making sure everyone put their equipment back.
Okay.
And I also was in student council.
Oh my gosh.
So I did all kinds of things, but track and field was always my favorite.
Okay.
And I was a jumper specifically. I
Yeah.
did not run.
Yeah.
I only ran if it was a punishment. But yeah, I love high jump and triple jump. I don't think I could do it even to this day.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, because I was like,
Yeah.
because everything else I saw about you that I researched or did like work on you was like, okay, well, she's like, she got the esthetician business, she's got the Mrs. Colorado thing, she's got this, and she's got Taylor Swift, but the long jump was like, what? There's a story there, and there is. Do you think what is it about you that you've always needed to do something?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's just because I always grew up just being busy. My mom always had us busy. We were always doing sports or something. We were always doing something. And I think that was just a matter of where we lived. You have to stay busy so you don't get into trouble.
Okay.
And so I always just stayed busy. And
what do you think the value of that is? Like for students in this day and age, is it important that what's the importance of that?
For me, I think it just makes you so much more well-rounded and more confident in trying new things. Something that people always say to me, especially my sister, she always says like, I don't know why you're always just doing these things. And I told her because I'm a little bit delusional.
Right.
Like I a little bit think I can do everything. And so I just do it.
Right.
And I think that is from when I was younger, and just my mom would be like, okay, you're doing soccer next week. And I'm like, I don't want to. She's like, do it anyway.
Right.
You know, and then the week after that, I'd be like, well, I want to try piano. And she'd be like, all right, let's try it.
Okay.
And so I think it a lot came from my mom just encouraging me to always do something. And it's like, if you don't like it, you don't have to keep doing it.
Right.
But you have to try.
You gotta try
you
it.
know? And so for me, I try things, and sometimes I'm a hobby person too.
Okay.
So I always try new hobbies and try new things. And it's just like, if I see somebody doing it, I think to myself, like, I could probably do that.
I could probably do
you know?
That's a wonderful gifting, but it's also the most dangerous gifting,
It is.
because then you're like, oh yeah, I could deadlift 350 pounds.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, I can't. I mean, I'll get there.
Yeah, it's kind of how I got into the pageant. I'm like, I could do a pageant.
Yeah, I can do a pageant, and look at you, 2 years, two back-to-back championships, or back-to-back. What do we call it? Reigns, I guess.
Yeah, reigns,
Back
I
to
guess.
back.
Yeah.
I like the word championship.
I do too.
We need to make you like a WWE belt, like what you just
Yeah.
say you wear around with your crown.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two things in your work history that are interesting to me. It starts with respiratory therapy, and then it moves into esthetician. How do you say it? Esthetician?
Esthetician, yeah.
I can't pronounce that word for the life of me. Esthetician? Got it.
Yeah.
Sort of. So where did kind of your work history, aside from all the hobbies and all the amazing things you do, what was that path, and why was that path?
So back in 2014, I graduated from respiratory therapy school.
Okay.
And I got into that because when I first got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I left high school and I immediately just went into working.
Okay.
I worked as a bartender and a server, and I was doing that for a long time. But then I was like, I kind of just don't think that I could do this forever.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a nurse, but I also had been out of school for so many years. I was
Right.
like, I don't really want to go back to school for
Right.
like 4 years. Like I've got the taste of like the good life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, making money. Like I don't know that I want to go to school forever. And so I went to Pima, and this is so telling of my whole life. I went to Pima, and I'm
Right.
like, hi, I would like to go to school here. And they're like, for what? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are the options?
Yeah.
And
Do you
then-
have a menu? Can I
yeah,
look at that?
And that's how it was. She was like, okay. And then she like gave me the paper, and I'm like, oh, respiratory therapy starts Monday. I'll do that. And I literally walked into class on Monday. She's like, okay, take the test. I did the test, passed everything, and I was
Wow.
able to enroll. And yeah, I walked in Monday, and everyone's like, has all these like amazing stories. Like,
Right.
oh, my baby was in the NICU, and
Yeah.
I met a respiratory therapist, or
Yeah.
my dad was on his dying deathbed, and
Right.
the respiratory therapist helped us through that.
Right.
And then it's like me, I'm like, class started Monday,
Yeah.
and I was feeling motivated.
I
on
closed
Friday.
my eyes and I threw a thing at the wall, and you're it.
Yeah,
So,
and then I ended up loving it because it's
Okay.
it's my personality. You
Yeah.
do something different every hour of the day. Like you are
Okay.
not doing the same thing at
Right.
all. You are in the ER for an hour, and then
Yeah.
you're going to be in the NICU for an hour, and then
Yeah.
you're going to go to the ICU for a little bit, and then
Yeah.
you might have to go back and help them in surgery.
Yeah.
And so I loved that about it. It was like every single day was different.
Yeah.
I was never doing the same thing. I felt very needed because I was needed all over. And so I really liked that. And then once I started working at University of Colorado Hospital,
Okay.
I worked in the ER and the burn unit. Yeah, so then when I was working in the burn unit a lot, there
Okay.
was estheticians that actually worked there. And
Okay.
I thought that was so crazy. I'm like, you can work as an esthetician like in the hospital.
Huh.
And they were like, yeah, so their specialty was actually skin.
Oh,
And so
okay.
they would go around the hospital and they would make sure that everybody's skin looks good, because
Okay.
one of the main issues for like infections in the hospital
Yeah.
is skin ulcers.
Yeah.
And so I got involved with the Skin Champs team there,
Okay.
and we would just go around the hospital. We would make sure that everybody's skin was good.
Okay.
And the main devices that cause skin issues are respiratory devices.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of championed that team, and just we would go around and we'd look at everybody's skin, and I
Yeah.
was just fascinated with skin.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and I decided that it wasn't safe for me to work in the hospital
Yeah.
anymore because my son was still so little. He was like
Yeah.
7 or 8 months old.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And so I ended up just transitioning to be a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
And then at that time, I was like obsessed with skincare, and
Yeah.
like this is COVID, so everyone's
Right.
just like learning
Everyone's super
things.
focused. Yeah.
Yeah, and I told my husband, I was like, I have been wanting to go to esthetician school so that I could expand my respiratory therapy knowledge for a long time. And like, this feels like the perfect time because COVID and it's hybrid. So most of the classes are online, and then I only had to go in for a couple of hours.
Okay.
So I ended up going back to school. And then after I decided that I really was so in love with skincare and
Yeah.
just helping women
Yeah.
improve their skin and just feeling more beautiful
Yeah.
in what God gave them.
Yeah.
And knowing just how to take care of themselves without having to pay thousands of dollars for surgery and filler and Botox, when it's just a couple of lifestyle changes that you have to make. And so I ended up opening my own business when we moved to Wiggins, and opened a little spa in Wiggins, which now I've actually moved, opened my second business now in Brighton, because I was meeting so many people from the Denver metro area, and here I kind of had to bring myself to the middle. But yes, I've been in business for almost like 2.5 years now.
That's awesome.
And I primarily just focus on women and millennial women aging. So and adult acne.
So I love the labels and again, I am not a labels guy. So this is full disclosure. I am not a labels guy. It doesn't irritate me, but so I don't even know where I fall as a 41-year-old. I think I'm millennial, at the far end of the millennial scale. But why? Because you're very specific in using millennial as your descriptor word. Why is that the age group that needs this help, or why is that an age group that is looking for this kind of stuff?
Well, I think it's interesting because the younger generation, they've grown up with so much access to internet. I feel like they're so savvy. Like they understand, like they need to wear SPF to stay young, and they don't need to be tanning in the sun. And millennial women are interesting because we're like right at the cusp where like we have access, but some don't use it and some do. And so I feel like some women know very well how to take care of their skin, and then there's some women that are my age that are they're not even wearing sunscreen every day, and they're wondering why they're aging rapidly in Colorado.
Right.
And
have you seen the sun in Colorado? It's around a lot.
Or they just are doing like all of the wrong things for their skin. And so I've just found that women my age specifically, they either know a lot or they know absolutely nothing.
Interesting.
And so it's just, I don't know.
It's like this divide of like, there is that group that knows everything and has spent their time doing their research and has really perfected it and really made it a part of their lives. And the other group has just not, for whatever reason, has not done it. And I think it's so interesting to hear that, because you would think in 2023, with the access to everything that we have, so many people would have that information. But it's a curious thing. I'll run into people who are from your generation who have no idea how to use a computer, or like I hand them a thing and they're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, how do you were born in the digital age? Like, what happened to you? But because of either access disparities or they just don't want to. Like, they're just like, I don't want to touch a computer. I don't want to do it. Like, I don't know. I want to be on my own. I want to be off the grid. And sometimes I think maybe that may be part of it. Like, people are just like, there's so much to know about skincare. I just can't handle it. I can't do enough of it. I need extra help, which is where you come in, where you're able to speak to them and be like, hey, like, here's some pieces and parcels of starting that process. And then we can kind of ramp you up into something that's more like full coverage care, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and like I like to specialize in, like I say, millennial, because that's what I know.
Right.
My own skin struggles, and I feel like I can relate to people my own age a little bit better.
Well, and again, because I didn't stalk you, I researched you on Instagram. You talk a little bit about adult acne and that experience for you. Walk us through kind of how that developed for you and why that's a passion for you and why that's something you kind of you're for your business is something you focus on.
So like I said, there's access issues, but there's also too much access issues. And so when I was pregnant with my son, I had horrible hormonal acne and literally nothing worked for it.
Really?
And I would go online, like on YouTube, and I'm like, facial, how to give yourself a facial, like how to fix your pimples, like something. And I would try every single product. Like I'd read the thing. I'm like, okay, go to Walmart and buy these 10 things. And I would put all the 10 things on, and my face would get worse.
Oh, jeez.
And then I would go back and I'm like, okay, no, these 10 things. Put all the 10 things on, and my face got even worse.
Oh,
and then towards the end of my pregnancy, I was just using water, because I'm like, I don't know, water can't go wrong, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then when I graduated when I graduated esthetician school and I understood skin, I'm like, oh my God, I was doing literally everything wrong. And then these videos that you're watching on YouTube that are for acne are almost always for teenage hormonal acne, which is completely different than adult female hormonal acne. And it also requires completely different products and changes in diet, changes in lifestyle, completely different care. And so I found that I didn't know what I was doing, and a lot of other women don't know either. And so sometimes it's just a matter of talking to people, and it's so simple. Sometimes they're like, well, I sit, and they're talking to me, and they're holding their hand on their face, and they're like, I don't know what could be causing this breakout patch on my cheek, and I get it all the time. And so sometimes it's just as simple as saying, do you often put your hand on your face.
Yeah.
And so
It's like, oh, wait, what?
you know, so sometimes it doesn't even come down to products, which
Yeah.
I didn't even understand. Sometimes it just comes down to
like, yeah.
understanding little tiny
Right.
lifestyle changes.
How are you living your life? What are you doing? And even just like, again, not a woman, guy,
Yeah.
but like stuff that you use in the shower, stuff that you use on your hair, stuff that
Yeah.
you, any like, because
Your laundry soap, your
Right.
dryer sheets,
Yeah.
everything.
or what you eat, like, and what I learned, because again, I'm a typical, this is gonna sound a little stereotypical, but I'm a typical man or boy, and then for the longest time, I would just wash my hair every day, up until I was like 35. So that was like 6 years ago, and I was like, I thought I heard something about you don't have to wash it every day. I was like Googling and doing a little research. I was like, oh, so I can wash my hair on Monday, use the conditioner after I washed it, and then like Tuesday just run water through it, and then like Wednesday put some conditioner in it, and like Thursday maybe I can wash it, and it was just like this revolutionary moment of going, I've been doing it wrong for so long. Why didn't I know this? Again, that access or that knowledge of like, oh, now, and it's for me, it feels a lot better. My hair, my scalp isn't as messed, like my scalp isn't as itchy, or because I'm like, oh, the natural oils and all those other things that you hear constantly about. But I was just like, oh, whatever, I don't believe any of that. But then when you start to, okay, I'm going to do some research, and not just going on YouTube, because the YouTube algorithm is a dangerous thing. You start watching videos about conspiracy theories, and in 15 minutes, you believe that Bigfoot is real and he's outside your door.
Yeah, literally. And like I said, and I grew up with YouTube, and I used to be that girl that'd be like, I'd watch a makeup tutorial, and I'm like, I'm gonna go buy every product that they said, even if it's not my skin tone. I mean, I didn't know.
Who cares? I
want to look like that girl. And so, yeah, I think it's a lot of I find it's just educating people on, you just listen to what I say. You don't have to do this on your own.
Well, and it's almost kind of like a similar argument that doctors will make or nutritionists will make is that everyone is different. Like your skin tone and your skin is so different from mine. Yeah. And different from my wife. My wife and your skin tone are, and how that skin acts and works, very different. Yeah. And it's down to DNA, it's down to genetics. And so when you have that, an esthetician, I said that word wrong. An
esthetician.
I'm gonna just have you say it when I need you. But it's very specific. So like to your point, when you were a teenager, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go look like that girl, and then you're like, but I don't. Why? Yeah. And it's like, well, you aren't her. And I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but do you feel as if, or how do you feel that for women has that changed? Has it gotten better? Because a perception is, through media and through social media and influencers, good or bad or whatever, mostly bad, there's been this constant concern about our girls and our women about how they're told how to look, and they have to look a certain way, and to do that they have to follow this regimen, they have to do this exact thing that this person does or this influencer does, and then obviously they find out, man, that's not working, or, oh, I don't like what I don't look like her, oh, I'm not good enough. Like there's this whole do you feel if that has gotten better, or is it still a work in progress when it comes to getting women and girls to understand, hey, you don't have to look like everybody else, you just need to look like you, if that question makes sense? Yeah, no, I think it's a work in progress, and I think it's also, we were talking a little bit about AI earlier, and I think we're also in a really weird time of AI, because if you don't like the way that you look, you can take your picture and you can be like, make me look different. Right. And I think that really distorts people's images of themselves, because then what they see on their phone and what they're posting on their social media, and then they look in the mirror and they're like, well, I don't look like that. Yeah. And so then I think it really it kills your self-confidence, because you're never going to look like that AI generated vision of yourself. Yeah. And half the people that you're looking at probably are also AI generating themselves. So that's why you can't look like that either. Yeah. And so I think we're in a really interesting time. And so I don't know, I'm actually interested to see what happens with this, because I've just been seeing so many girls and women that I know using these fake AI pictures for their profile pictures and completely changing the way they look, and I'm like, but you're so beautiful in the way that you are. So I do try to share not very imitated. I'm sure you saw the one with all my acne. Yeah, but I do try to share very unedited images of myself, or when I am using a filter, I will say, here's me without a filter and here's me with a filter. So people understand that you do not sometimes wake up and you have a full face of makeup on. It's interesting is that phenomenon you're talking about, like posting the real stuff. I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, that was a thing. People were like, this is the real me. This is me without makeup. And I'm okay. I was afraid to put this out there, but I'm courageous enough. I'm strong enough to say, this is who I am too. This is me. This is who I am. And I mean, I would argue that photo that you put up, it was striking in how you were honest and how you were just like, this is reality. Like, but you weren't like, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is just me in this situation. And I can put on some makeup and I can look different and I can look better, or I can, better's the wrong word.
Or hide it,
right.
Or I could not even post it and you
right.
guys would never know
right.
that.
But there's
that
also
this
that
struggle was here.
Yeah. But you're acknowledging that struggle.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm covering up that struggle. I don't want you to see that. It's like, no, this is something that I deal with, but here's how I compensate. Here's how I do what I want to do to do what to change that or to look different. I want to make sure I don't use that word better again, because it's not to suggest that you were bad or worse, but it's an interesting. So I taught 6th grade literacy for 2 years at the middle school, and so I had my 6th grade boys and girls, and that age is a wacky age, and it was interesting to see our girls in how they come out of school as 5th graders, and like they're just 5th graders they're not makeup they're whatever, but all of a sudden 6th grade hits, and about 3 or 4 weeks in, girls start trying makeup, they start trying to look different, and they're changing their fashion, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I felt, and I still feel to this day, that there was something darker behind that, where it was they weren't trying to be themselves, they were trying to be somebody else that they were trying to show off, or they were trying to be somebody that somebody else wanted them to be.
Right,
like, oh well, everyone, the cool girls look like this, or the cool girls dress like this, or the cool girls have makeup and they have this stuff, and it became kind of just like a question I would want to ask and be like, who are you? Like, is this the real you? Is this the true you? And at 6th grade and 7th grade, boys and girls are having a heck of a time with hormones. They're having a heck of a time with identity. They're trying to figure out who they are. But I think there's that golden side of like, yeah, great, you're working through that. You're figuring out who you are. There's that darker side of like, oh God, like this is for your mental health and your sanity and your self-respect and your self-assurance and your self.
Yeah, like esteem.
There it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a language arts teacher. I should know these words, but like this for the self-esteem, like, are you building yourself up on it, or are you building up a facade of yourself that's not the true you? And how long will you hold on to that? And how hard will you fight to keep that little facade up and not show the true you? And then, so that's kind of why I asked that question of like, are we making progress? And how is that progress looking? And I guess my follow-up question is that, what do we need to do to make that, to kind of fight that idea, to push back against this idea, well, you have to look like this, or you have to be like this, or you have to dress like this, or you have to like, how do you, I guess, I'll frame it this way. Yeah. If you have a bunch of our girls in front of you, you have middle school, high school girls in front of you right now, and they're sitting in chairs, and the topic of the conversation is who you are. How do you answer that question to them?
Well, I don't know. I would just say that for me personally, I have only ever gone farther in life when I have been who I am. Like like saying I was a piece of pizza one time for Halloween, and nobody else probably would have ever thought of that. But I can guarantee you, I still have friends to this day that will never forget that I was a piece of pizza. And so I just think that you have to. I think that once girls see more women start to just be who they are and not constantly shape shift for every single season of their life, that
authentic self,
being
your genuine who you are inside in that heart and mind, versus putting on, to borrow a conversation about a Halloween costume, like putting on a costume that doesn't really fit,
and embracing the weird parts of you, because those are the things that people are going to find interesting. That's what I've noticed. People only find the weirdest parts of me interesting, but that's what it's fun to share those things, and I'm okay with sharing that with people. Like if I have to share, photos with no makeup on to make somebody else be like, okay, maybe this isn't just my own struggle. Like other people have gone through this. Somebody who is a professional in skincare also gets pimples. Wow. Revelation. So I don't know. I think it's just showing people that being authentic and showing your authentic self, I think it's just contagious. And well, I just hope that me being that way, it reflects onto other people, and they they are okay with embracing their weird parts.
Yeah, I've always I told my 6th graders weird is wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm a weird guy. Like like my YouTube videos that I've been making. Like I will go off on a tangent and I'll just and I used to be that way of like, oh, I gotta edit that or I gotta fix that. And this last year has been like, you know what? No, I'm gonna be weird. And if you don't want to watch it, I'm not gonna get any views, and I'm okay with that. My goal is not to be an influencer. Like, I'd be terrified to be an influencer. Good Lord, but like. I want to be who I am. I don't want to be an edited version of myself. I don't want to be somebody who doesn't say something or do something because they're afraid of what people might think or what that might be interpreted as. I'm like, no, I want to be my authentic self. And I think that's maybe that's the statement there. Be your authentic self. Don't try and be somebody you're not. Don't try and be somebody that someone else is telling you or wants you to be. Be who you are, and you'll find your people. You'll find your love. You'll find your hobbies. You'll find your hope. You'll find your joy by just being yourself and seeking to better yourself and seeking advancement and seeking that future, seeking that destiny. I mean, for you, you've been through a journey. You've had an experience where you've been like, yeah, I've tried so many different things, but every time you found something that was your joy, like the respiratory therapy, you're like, I loved it. I found my purpose in that. The esthetician thing, you found your purpose in that. With the Mrs. Colorado thing, you found a purpose. You're like, no, this is good for me. This is what I want to do. This makes me a better person, and it's my identity. Like, it fits me. It's who I am and who I want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like my husband, when I said I was going to do it again, he's like, why? You didn't win. And I'm like, I know, but I didn't realize that I didn't care about not winning until I didn't win.
Right.
And I was like, and that's why I want to do it, because you find those things in yourself that you don't even know exist.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let me look at my list of things. Okay. You are a hiker and a camper. And so your Instagram feed is fantastic. There's a couple things where you put shots together. So on Instagram, when you scroll through it, if you put certain shots together, it creates like this big old tableau of like the mountains. And so there's a couple shots where you put together like a whole like mountain range lake or something. I was just like, what is this? So what is it about? I mean, again, I'm pretty sure I know the answer by now, but what is it about hiking and camping and just being in the outdoors why is that so interesting, and why do you do it? Like, what's the drive?
Well, I grew up going hiking and camping with my grandparents and my mom. But then once I got into high school, I kind of went away from that. Like, I went to that like stereotypical, like, oh, I'm a city girl, I don't like the outdoors, you know? And so kind of like what you said with trying to fit in with people, and I kind of lost that. And then I met my husband, and our very first date, we went hiking, and I was like, oh, great, like, I got to pretend like I like this, like, you know? And so we did it, and I actually ended up really liking it. And I was like, what the heck? I didn't even know I liked hiking. Like, I forgot how much I liked it. And then as we started dating, we would go hiking and camping. And one time we went on like a 7-day hiking camping trip where we went to Utah, New Mexico, Arkansas, Colorado. We camped and hiked for 7 days straight. We did hundreds and hundreds of miles of hiking, and it was just so fun. And I was like, I remember when I was a little kid and we would go camping, and I'd just be walking around with no shoes on, getting dirty, not caring. And so I think that once I went into adulthood and I started hiking and camping again with my husband, I really found that like childhood love again. And so I kind of just we're going back to being a child, and converted back to like my childhood interests. Well, and and I love just being it's not really, once you get to the top, like you finish that hike and you look around, you're like, I started way down there, and half the time I kept wanting to turn back, but I'm here. And so for me, it's just like, I just want to see the top of every mountain. And
have you done your 14er? How are you doing on your 14er mark, like checklist?
I've only done one 14er actually, but I've done a lot that would be equivalent to a 14er, just in other states, so they're not 14ers. Right. But I've only done one 14er in Colorado. My husband, he's done tons. But since we had our son, it's a little bit harder to do the 14ers. We have to be like really family friendly. So now I try to share more like family friendly hikes, which are good for people who have never done hiking, because they're good starters, and if my 4-year-old can do it, you can do it too.
It's a little bit, that's a little leverage.
We've definitely had to scale back our interests, and we don't get to do as many of the big hikes anymore. We do a lot more of the family-friendly ones, but
that's awesome. I think for you, it's again that a reoccurring theme for you, I feel like, is things that you forgot that you loved, or that you didn't know that you loved. they didn't come to you just accidentally. You had to pursue those things.
Yeah.
Those things you had to fight to get to. You had to throw yourself out there. You had to put yourself out and say, okay, I'm going to try this. And you never stopped learning. You never stopped discovering. And I think that's a cool thing, because a lot of whatever is before millennials, I guess the generation who's in school now, it feels like sometimes there's that lack of discovery, that lack of wanting to try something or discover something. And to hear you talk about it, it's like, man, that was how I have been for most of my life. Is like, I want to try that. I want to do this. This is exciting. This is new. This is different. Let me learn this. Let me research it. Let me read the books on it. Oh my gosh, it's almost like an instinct for you. You can't not learn about something new.
And I can't imagine, like, there's some like people who just never do anything different in their life. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because if I do the same thing for like 3 days in a row, I'm like, I'm so bored. Like, I've been at home for 3 days working. I'm bored.
Right. Well, my wife is the same way. She can't stay in the house for more than a day or two. Yeah. And she's like, I have to go walk. I need to go on the bike at the gym. I need to go take a walk around the neighborhood. Like, I got to get out in the sunshine. Yeah. I'm in the boat of, like, I'm a computer gamer. I love just sitting in my little office and playing computer games and like hunkering down, and I'll hermit for like 2 or 3 days playing my computer games. I do have to eventually get out of the house, because I will get a little stir crazy. But I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm like, yeah, I can hang out for 2 or 3 days. My wife was like, get me up now. Yeah. I need to go do something with my life. I'm like, okay, all right, you can do that.
That's how I am. My husband gets home from work, and he's like, I'm ready to relax. And I'm like, we're not going to go on a walk? I've been inside all day.
You don't understand.
I know. Like,
well, it's kind of like, it's you're not hangry, but you're like walking angry.
Yeah.
You're like, I need to walk.
Yeah.
I need to walk the day off.
That's definitely a...
Nice. Okay, so my question for you, this is again from Instagram, and it puts you in the minority in Colorado. You're a Lakers Patriots fan?
No, I'm not Lakers. My husband's a Lakers fan.
Okay, because I saw the costume.
Yeah.
And I was like, are we gonna have a problem? Are we gonna have an issue today?
No. Well, my husband is a Lakers fan pre
LeBron. Okay, fair enough.
And then I'm a Patriots fan, because my family's from New England. They're from Vermont, and so I always grew up being like a Patriots Celtics fan. Okay. But I would say I'm a Nuggets fan. I like the Nuggets.
Oh yeah, no, they just won the championship.
They just won the championship. Yeah. So I would say if we're gonna pick a Colorado team, I would go Nuggets. Definitely not Broncos.
Oh. Well, here's the thing. At least you're not a Raiders fan, because otherwise you're done. Get out. No. Go home. You're done. The podcast is over. We're canceling you.
Yeah, but I love the Patriots. I loved them before when we had Brady, but
it's very interesting, that whole storyline of how he was like, oh, I'm retiring. Never mind. I'm back. And it's like, buddy. And then like his wife broke up with him, and that whole thing happened, and I was just like, oh man, I don't know who to feel sorry for. They're both worth millions of dollars, so it doesn't really matter, but it still sucks, because that's a marriage broken, and I don't even know how to feel. But I'm a Broncos fan. I'm not really a Patriots. I mean, they're all right. Bill Belichick, I think, is probably just the greatest of all time, no matter what you try and talk about him with, even with Inflategate or Deflategate or whatever it was. Okay, I can cross that off the list. You're fine. You're accepted. Got the 2009. So I love how it was listed as your personal records for high jump and long jump, and that those records from 2009, your personal records, are still listed on the website.
I know, that's funny. I didn't even know they were still there. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, they're still there. Personal records. Your high jump was 4'6", and then your long jump was 12'11". So I wrote them down.
I don't even know if that's good. So
I don't know either. Bad. But they were they were marked as personal records from 2009. So there you go. Okay, I guess we can close it out with HGTV. So you were involved. Because you have some clips on your Instagram of your involvement with the HGTV crowd. What was that like? How do you feel about it? And
that was so fun. That was seriously like a dream come true for me. I grew up watching HGTV, and that was just like that was something I never expected to get. I actually got offered that before I ever did like Mrs. Morgan County or anything. One of my friends who's a business owner in town, she was working with them already, and she just gave them my name, I guess, because she thought I was an inspirational person in town. Okay. And so they contacted me, and they're just asking me questions, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I like to do this, I like to do that, just like kind of like what we're talking now. Yeah. I had no idea that I was going to be on the show. Yeah. And so then I was getting a message of like, show up at this alleyway on this day, and we're gonna film some clips just as a community member. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'm standing off to the side,
Yeah.
like thinking I'm digging a hole or something. Like I do not think that I'm going to be having any talking role
Right,
or
yeah,
anything. And the next thing I know, they're calling me over. They're like, come stand next to Ben and Aaron. We're getting started. And I'm like, me? You confused? Like, I'm a community member. Like, I don't think I'm in charge of this.
Right. I didn't
And they're
know.
like, no, yeah, you're like one of the feature people. And I'm like, oh, I didn't, what? And so, yeah, I was completely put on the spot. They're like, stand here and we're building this. They told me a little bit about what we were building and they're like, all right, go. So it was a completely unexpected opportunity just from somebody in the town recommending me. And
that's awesome.
It was really fun. And we built the little Zen garden, which I love because it's so my personality. I love plants.
Right.
We didn't even get there, but I have hundreds of plants in my house.
We'll put that on the
And
future episode. Plants.
So I love plants and
Taylor
I love
Swift.
like just the tranquil. So it was like right up my alley, and we got to build that little park, and it was a really fun opportunity, and definitely unexpected.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is like, I think, and that's again, the beauty of what HGTV did is they did involve people in the community, and there was that kind of sense of community involvement and community engagement, which I think is a really cool thing. Okay, let's see. Anything else on the list? Okay, so you identify yourself as a mama bear in your Instagram profile. If you don't want to talk about your son, you don't have to, but I'm like, kids are a big deal. Like, they're important and they have a value. So I guess walk us through your kid. What's your story with him?
Oh yeah, so I talked about it a little bit earlier,
Yep.
but I have a 4-year-old, and he is the smartest, most opinionated little boy in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had him, and he literally became my whole entire world, and everything since I've had him has been for him.
Yeah.
When he was about 2 years old, we noticed he really wasn't talking.
Okay.
And he was, like I said, he's incredibly smart. He would be doing full puzzles.
Yeah.
Like if you tell him, get me, put the red here, put the blue there, whatever.
Go ahead and keep talking. I'm going to go close the door.
Oh yeah, you're good. He would do full puzzles. He would tell you where anything was, and he just wasn't talking much. And so we ended up getting him evaluated, and he had a little bit of a speech delay. We got involved with early intervention, and he completely overcame that, and now he's great. But he's just really, really funny and really opinionated and very, very smart. Like, he is one of those kids where you can't tell him anything. Like, he's going to wear whatever he wants to wear. Like, he has to pick his clothes every day.
Okay.
He has to be in charge of what our schedule looks like.
Okay.
Like, he is very opinionated, but...
Basically, he runs the house at this point.
He runs us. So
Where do you think he gets that from? Is it you or your husband?
Oh, definitely me.
Okay, I was gonna say I wasn't gonna assume that that's where that was
he's
coming
got
from.
An even bigger personality than me, which I never thought was possible. Like like I'm the loudest person you could ever hear, and he'll be telling, he's like, "Mom, you are too loud. Be quiet." And I'm like, never has anybody told me that. Like,
and it's my own son.
It's my own son.
I am offended.
I know,
sir. You are 4.
Yeah, but he's really sweet, and he's just crazy.
Okay.
Very crazy.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I've exhausted my questions. I'm going to look one more time through my questions because it's important that we hit all the questions. Okay. So yeah, here's my two questions follow up, like last kind of questions. What is your plan, or what is your genuine journey now into your second reign as Mrs. Morgan County 2023-2024?
Well, this year I've made a lot of different things that I'm doing different than last year. So this year I'm really just focusing on in doing more for my platform, which, like I said, is early intervention.
Yeah.
So I'm now on the state legislative team.
That's a hard word.
For the Colorado Early Intervention Program.
Okay.
And so we're just really lobbying to get more funding for the program and to bring more eyes. And again, just to let people know that there are help and resources that are free to anybody whose child needs it. So that's my main goal for this year. And then the other thing that I'm working really hard on right now going into the winter time is raising donations and also collecting winter clothing for the children affected by the war in the Ukraine. So we're collecting winter clothing, and we are sending those over to children that are living in orphanages. A lot of them are in basements, and it's very cold. And so that's my main initiative this year, is just trying to not only help people here in our community and in Colorado, but also doing what we can to help people who are less fortunate in little ways that, everyone has clothes that they're not using that they can use.
Okay. All right. We're going to close it out with something that I forgot about, but I wrote down, but we're going to talk about it. So you have tattoos.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be our closing segment on this Morgan County Stories. What is your, I guess, what do you have? What are they, is there a symbol signification of them? And then what is your favorite tattoo that you have?
So I think my favorite tattoo, I have a lot of tattoos. A lot of them don't mean anything.
Okay. They're just artistic.
Yeah, they're just artistic.
Okay.
And then my favorite one is probably my Medusa tattoo.
Okay.
I love reptiles.
Okay.
I love her snake hair. And I also just love this story of Medusa.
Right.
I just always thought it was such a fascinating story.
Right. You look at her, you
Lady
turn to
Killer.
stone.
I loved it.
She's kind of like Ursula and kind of like Cruella de Vil. Like she's got this.
But then she's also got such, she's a little misunderstood, I think, too. Because, I don't know, I would say it's probably, like Taylor Swift says, most things that women do is just a reaction of what men did to us.
Right. I don't know if we can actually do that with because they did make a prequel to Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
They made a movie with, was it Emma Roberts or somebody? Not Emma Roberts. Anyway, my point is that there are those kind of, in some ways, like anti-heroes. Like the Medusa has a story. She has a backstory. Like you said, there's probably a reason as to why she is who she is and what occurred.
And then my second favorite tattoo is It Is What It Is.
Okay.
Because one day I was having a really bad day, and I had to remind myself, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so every time I have a bad day, I'm
just
like,
look at your arm.
It is what it is. We just need to move on.
I think that's one of the things, like, it's funny, like that word, that sentence, that phrase has become like, people hate that. There's like, I hate it. But it's like, it's almost kind of like it's like a way for you to wow, that word is hard. It's a way for you to compartmentalize what's going on. It's like, I have influence and power over certain things. There's other things I have no control over. And that's where that it is what it is. You can't change it. You can't blunt force it. You just got to go.
And dwelling on it just only puts you in a worse mood because it still doesn't change it.
Well, it exhausts you. You have all this stress, and you're just like, I am putting so much energy into this dumb thing that I can't do anything about. I'm just going to be like, it is what it is, and move on from there.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end out the episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? Any last gasps of wisdom or thoughts? Advice to students, advice to people, advice to girls, advice to women, any of those last pieces of what Mecaila thinks?
No, just really, if you're ever doubting yourself, feel free to reach out to me, and I would be happy to talk with you, meet up with you, anything. Or if you are interested in getting involved in pageantry, or you would like to go for one of our local titles, I would also love to help you through that process, because I'd love more women in Morgan County and in the area to get involved and to do more.
So your Instagram, I'm pulling it up now because I forgot to pull it up so I can read it out to the audience. Your Instagram is MECAILABETH, Mecaila Beth. Yep. She is a digital creator. She's a Mama Bear Wifey licensed esthetician. And you have a link to your esthetician Instagram. You are Miss Morgan County for Mrs. Colorado. You're living a life full of adventure. And you, like, literally, you should just go scroll through her Instagram. I don't often, I'm on Instagram. I don't post. If you look at my Instagram, I have literally no pictures of my face. I'm just taking pictures of my classroom or wherever I am. But you are very, the word's not particular, but you're very artistic in your choices and what you write. And so, scrolling through it, I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I wonder what that message is, because your picture is there's a message that she's written or a comment or something. I'm like, I want to read more about that. I did a couple of your photos where you were spotlighting either past Miss Colorados or stuff like that. Was really cool. So if you're looking for a great Instagram profile, not only to follow and engage with, but also just literally just scroll through and look at all the cool stuff that Mecaila's been doing over the many, 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 many years that this account has been around. definitely check her out. I think you have a Facebook like profile for your stuff, or is it just I can't remember what it is.
I did, but I feel like it was just too much.
Yeah. Well,
so I just have my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. So yeah, check her out on Mecaila. So it's Mecailabeth. Mecaila Beth. Mecaila Farnsworth has been our guest for the first ever episode of Morgan County Stories. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for taking the last literal quite an hour. We pulled off an hour and 15 minutes of conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing your story. I knew little of you, but now I know so much more, and it's even better. Like you are an incredible and inspiring individual. Like you've done so much, but you've never stopped learning. You've never stopped pursuing your dreams. And that, if I was to stand in front of a bunch of students and be like, here's a girl who's not stopped, who's not given up, who's not quit, and who continues to just push and pull and go and move and shake and do all the things. I mean, you're in the running for Mrs. Colorado. Like last year you didn't win it, obviously, but this year, maybe that's your year. And that's I think a cool thing to be like, hey, she could be the next Mrs. Colorado. And who knows what the future holds for Mecaila.
Yeah, and then hopefully Mrs. America.
Yes, heck yes. Well, we here at Creative we'll be here at Creative Morgan. We'll be cheering you on and supporting you. But thanks for joining us, and you may see her in the future on a podcast of her own here around doing stuff. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you when we see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Bo show.